right, get ready. Today we're going deep into digital forensics.
Ooh, sounds intense.
It is. You've given me quite a bit of material to work with here.
I tried to give you a good overview.
Well, you definitely succeeded.
Yeah.
We've got, let's see, excerpts from this Spanish forensics manual, Rama Informatica Forense.
Ah, a classic.
And then we have a textbook, Analysis Forense Informatico.
Very thorough, that one.
It is. And to top it all off, some guidelines from Interpol.
Setting the international standard.
Yeah. And even some from the U.S. Army.
Wow, covering all the bases.
We are. So our mission, should we choose to accept it,
I think we should.
is to break down what digital forensics is all about, what are the steps involved, and some of the tools and techniques.
Sounds like a plan.
But we're not just going to give, like, a boring textbook definition.
No.
We're going to go for the aha moments.
I like it.
Okay, so most people, I think, have a general idea of what digital forensics is.
Like CSI, but for computers.
Yeah. But let's go a little deeper.
All right, let's dive in.
So every device in a digital forensics investigation
Oh, this is interesting.
can be either a weapon or a victim.
Okay, I like that.
So it can be the tool used to commit a crime.
Like a hacker's computer.
Right, exactly.
Launching an attack.
Or it can be the target of the crime.
Like if your computer gets hacked and they steal your bank info.
Exactly. And the textbook had a great example
Oh, yeah.
where they talk about a hacker who compromised a company computer
Okay.
and used that to then steal data from the company's main server,
Showing both sides.
showing both sides of that coin.
Yeah, very clever.
So investigators have to approach each case methodically.
Of course. Meticulously.
And they have these 6 phases
6 phases, all right.
that they break down the investigation into.
Makes sense. A roadmap.
It is. So the first is identification, then preservation,
Okay.
then collection, examination, analysis, and finally, presentation.
So it's not just like grab the computer and go, huh?
No. There's a whole process.
I see, a whole process.
And that process can vary depending on what you're investigating.
Because digital forensics, it's not just computers anymore.
Yeah.
You've got mobile devices, you got networks, you got malware.
So, like, if I'm dealing with, say, a cybercrime on a computer, how important is it to know what operating system it's running?
Oh, it's crucial. Absolutely crucial.
Really?
Yeah, because different operating systems, they leave behind different digital fingerprints.
Oh.
It's like, imagine trying to track someone's footprints
Okay.
in the sand versus in the snow.
Right.
Completely different, right?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, the sources also mention the different types of data that investigators have to analyze.
Oh, yeah, it can be a lot.
They talk about structured data and unstructured data.
Ah, yes, the 2 main categories.
That's the difference.
Okay, so think of structured data like information you'd find in a spreadsheet,
Okay.
like in a database, very organized, names, dates, numbers, easy to search.
Easy to make sense of.
Exactly. Now, unstructured data, that's more like a jumbled pile of notes.
Like all my notes.
Exactly. Emails, text messages, social media posts.
So basically anything that's not easily categorized.
Right. Messy and way more challenging to analyze.
So investigators have to be able to deal with both.
They have to. It's all part of the job.
Yeah.
Connecting the dots between those organized records and those more, chaotic everyday communications.
Yeah, that makes sense.
To get the full picture.
Now, one thing that jumped out at me from all these sources
Yeah.
was the emphasis on evidence
Oh, of course. Evidence is everything.
and how to handle it correctly.
Right. Because it's not enough to just find it.
Right.
You have to handle it the right way, or it's useless in court.
It's like you're playing a game with very specific rules.
Exactly.
If you break the rules, you don't win.
You're disqualified.
So the textbook pointed out the difference between computer-generated records,
Okay.
which are generally considered very reliable evidence,
Right, like timestamps, things like that.
and then things like manually gathered logs, which can be seen as hearsay.
It's like the difference between a security camera recording and someone just telling you what they saw.
Right.
One's way more reliable than the other.
And then there's that legal principle, the fruit of the poisonous tree.
Ah, yes, a classic legal doctrine.
That really drives this point home.
It does. It basically says that if you get evidence illegally, let's say, without a warrant,
Okay.
then any evidence that comes from that is also inadmissible.
So even if they stumble upon something huge,
Doesn't matter. If it was found by breaking the rules, it doesn't count.
so following procedure from the very beginning is crucial.
Absolutely crucial, even in like corporate investigations.
Yeah.
Because things can escalate.
They can turn into criminal cases.
Exactly. So you got to be careful.
Okay, so let's talk about those initial steps.
All right.
Before an investigator even touches a device at a crime scene.
Okay, so the first thing is to secure the scene, right?
Right. But digitally.
Digitally, okay.
So they document everything meticulously But the location of devices, whether they're on or off, any connected devices.
It's like freezing the scene in time.
It is.
Digitally.
And this documentation is key to establish a timeline.
And ensure the evidence is collected properly.
Right.
But it's not always that simple, you know?
Why is that?
Because criminals can be tech-savvy, too.
You're talking about anti-forensics techniques.
Exactly. They might use things like booby traps.
Booby traps?
Yeah, like data wiping tools that activate if you tamper with the device.
Oh, it's like a digital minefield.
It can be.
Yeah.
And they can also have kill switches that erase everything remotely.
So investigators have to be one step ahead.
Always. It's a constant cat and mouse game.
Yeah, a digital arms race.
I like that. And that's where triage comes in.
Triage?
Yeah, like in a hospital emergency room.
Okay.
You got to assess the situation quickly, figure out what devices are there, how relevant they are.
Prioritize.
Exactly. Prioritize what to collect first, based on the urgency of the situation.
And that urgency often comes down to data volatility.
You got it. Data volatility, that's a key concept in digital forensics.
So data volatility, huh? Sounds kind of scary.
It can be. Think of it like this. Some digital evidence is like a melting ice cube.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, the most volatile data, like the stuff in a computer's RAM, it vanishes quickly once the device is off.
Poof, gone.
Exactly. More persistent data, like the files on a hard drive, those stick around longer.
Okay, so it's like a race against time.
It can be. If investigators need to capture that fleeting information, that volatile stuff.
They have to work with the device while it's still on.
Exactly. Live data acquisition.
But that sounds risky.
It is. Even just connecting to a live system can change data.
So investigators need special tools and techniques.
They do. To minimize their impact.
Like a surgeon.
Yeah, working with precision.
Okay, so let's talk about those tools. What kind of hardware and software are we talking about here?
Well, the digital forensics toolkit, it's always evolving.
I bet.
But some essentials, you've got things like write blockers.
Write blockers, okay.
These prevent any accidental data modification during collection.
You don't want to contaminate the crime scene.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Then you have specialized software for data recovery, for imaging, and for analysis.
So it's like a whole digital forensics lab.
It is. It's like having a digital magnifying glass, a set of tweezers all rolled into one.
What about those more advanced techniques I read about?
Yeah.
Like JTAG and chip-off forensics?
Oh, yeah. Those are pretty high tech.
Hey, sound intense.
They are. JTAG is like having a backdoor key to a smartphone.
Wow.
It allows investigators to get data even if the device is locked.
Bypassing security measures.
Yeah. And then chip-off forensics, that's even more hardcore.
I bet.
It involves actually physically removing memory chips from devices and reading their contents directly.
Sounds delicate.
Very delicate. It requires specialized equipment and a very steady hand.
I can imagine.
And then there's hashing, which is a fundamental concept in digital forensics.
Okay.
Think of it like a digital fingerprint for a file.
A fingerprint?
Yeah. If even a single bit of data in that file is changed, the hash changes completely.
So any alteration is immediately obvious.
Exactly. It's a great way to prove that evidence hasn't been tampered with.
Okay, that's really clever. So investigators have ways to ensure the evidence is authentic.
They do.
All right, let's move beyond computers now.
Okay.
What about smartphones and virtual machines?
Smartphones. Everyone's got one these days.
It's true.
They're like mini computers packed with personal data.
And they're always connected to networks, right?
Always. And they've got all sorts of security features that can make it tricky to get data.
So investigators need specialized tools.
They do. To bypass passcodes, deal with encryption, even analyze data from the cloud.
It sounds like a whole different ballgame compared to a regular computer.
You could say that. And then you've got virtual machines, which add another layer of complexity.
Virtual machines, remind me what those are again.
So basically, it's like running multiple computers within a single computer.
Oh, right, like those Russian nesting dolls.
Exactly. To analyze a virtual machine properly, investigators need to capture the entire virtual environment.
Okay.
It's like investigating multiple computers at once.
Wow. So they have their work cut out for them.
They do. It can be quite a challenge.
Okay, so investigators have collected all this data, but what do they actually do with it?
The analysis. This is where it gets really interesting.
I bet. Where does it all begin?
Well, one of the first things is to create a timeline of events.
A timeline, okay.
Yeah, like a digital reconstruction of the crime.
I see.
Piecing together clues from timestamps, log entries, internet history, even metadata in photos and documents.
So every little detail matters.
It does. It's like solving a puzzle,
Okay,
where each piece of data helps reveal the bigger picture.
I love that analogy. What about deleted data? Is that gone forever, or can investigators bring it back?
That's a common misconception. Deleting a file is like tossing a letter in the trash.
Okay.
It's still there, just hidden.
So investigators have ways to go dumpster diving in the digital world.
They do. They can use specialized software to scan storage devices for remnants of those deleted files.
And piece them back together.
Exactly. It's like digital archaeology.
Wow, so deleted data isn't always gone.
But nope, not always.
What about data that's been deliberately hidden? How do you find something that someone's tried to make invisible?
That's where it gets even trickier. One thing investigators do is look for files with misleading names or extensions.
Trying to blend in.
Exactly. Like a spy hiding a secret message in a plain book.
Okay.
And they also look for signs of steganography.
Steganography, that's a new one.
It's the art of hiding data within other files.
So like hiding a message in plain sight.
Exactly. Imagine a seemingly innocent picture that actually has a secret message hidden within its pixels.
You never know.
Not unless you had the right tools to decode it.
Wow, it's like a whole secret world.
It is, full of secrets and hidden messages.
Okay, so we've talked about individual devices, but what about networks?
Networks. Network forensics can be a goldmine. Oh yeah. By capturing and analyzing network traffic, investigators can see what devices were connected, what websites were visited, what files were transferred.
They can even reconstruct conversations.
They can. From chat logs, emails, all sorts of things.
So even if the data is deleted from a device, there might still be a record of it in the network traffic.
Exactly. Network logs and captured data packets, they can provide a timeline of activity even if the original data's gone.
Like a digital surveillance camera?
I like that analogy.
Okay, earlier you mentioned malware analysis.
Oh yeah, that's a crucial part.
What role does that play in these investigations?
Well, malware analysis is key when you suspect a device has been infected with malicious software.
Like a virus.
Exactly. By examining the malware's code and behavior, investigators can understand how it works, what damage it's caused, and maybe even trace it back to its creator.
So it's like examining a digital weapon to figure out who fired it.
Exactly. Looking for those digital fingerprints and clues.
Okay, the sources also mentioned footprinting. What's that all about?
Think of it like digital scouting.
Scouting?
Yeah. It's a reconnaissance technique used by both attackers and investigators
Oh, interesting.
to gather information about a target.
Like casing the joint.
Yeah, exactly. They're looking for vulnerabilities, potential attack vectors.
What kind of information are they looking for?
It can be anything from IP addresses and domain names to social media profiles, employee directories, even technical details about their systems.
So they're building a profile.
Yeah, trying to understand the target's strengths and weaknesses.
Wow, it really is like being a spy.
It can be. And just like spies, they've got their gadgets and tools.
What kind of tools?
Everything from simple search engines to sophisticated network scanners.
It sounds like digital forensics is a constant game of hide and seek.
It can be. And it's always evolving.
Okay, so we've talked about computers, smartphones, networks, even malware.
It's a lot to cover.
It is. But there's one more area I want to talk about.
Okay, what's that?
Cloud computing.
The cloud. That's a big one.
It is. And it sounds like cloud forensics is a whole other beast.
It is. It's a whole different ballgame compared to traditional digital forensics.
How so?
Well, the main difference is that data isn't confined to a single device anymore.
Right, it's out there in the cloud.
Exactly. It's spread across a whole network of servers, often in multiple locations, controlled by a third-party provider.
So it's like trying to solve a puzzle where the pieces are scattered all over the place.
Exactly. And accessing those pieces requires a different approach.
Like what?
Well, investigators have to work with cloud providers, which often involves legal requests.
And the legal landscape is still evolving, right?
It is, which makes things even more tricky.
I bet there are technical challenges, too.
Oh, absolutely.
How do investigators handle data that's spread across multiple servers?
They need specialized tools and techniques to correlate data from different sources.
Makes sense.
To understand the architecture of cloud platforms, to navigate virtualized environments.
Virtualized environments. Remind me what those are.
Okay, so think of it like this. Multiple virtual machines running on a single physical server, like creating multiple apartments within a single building.
Right. So it's like a digital nesting doll.
Exactly. You have to peel back multiple layers to get to the evidence.
And those virtual machines can be created, deleted, moved around easily.
They can, which makes things even harder for investigators.
It sounds like cloud forensics requires a whole different skill set.
It does. Investigators need to be cloud savvy, comfortable with virtualization.
Okay, let's shift gears again.
Right.
Back to mobile devices.
Okay, smartphones.
You mentioned them briefly before.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
But what makes mobile forensics unique?
Well, mobile devices, they're highly personal.
Always with us?
Yeah, and packed with sensitive information.
And there are so many different types.
There are different operating systems, different models, different apps.
Makes it tough for investigators.
It does.
What kind of data are investigators looking for on mobile devices?
It depends on the investigation. But we're talking call logs, text messages, emails, photos, videos, GPS data, browsing history, app data.
So basically anything and everything someone does on their phone.
Pretty much. And investigators need special tools to extract and analyze all that data.
Because it's often stored in proprietary formats.
Exactly. And protected by security features.
Okay, we can't forget about social media.
Oh, social media. A gold mine for investigators.
Really?
Yeah, think about it. It's like everyone's life is plastered all over those platforms.
It's true.
It's a treasure trove of information.
What kind of evidence are we talking about?
Posts, comments, messages, location data, photos, videos, even deleted stuff.
Wow, so investigators can use this to establish timelines, corroborate alibis, identify witnesses.
They can. And uncover connections between people.
Social media is basically a digital diary.
It is. And it's not just for criminal investigations either.
Really?
Nope. Social media evidence is used in civil cases, corporate investigations, even family law disputes.
So it's a powerful tool.
Very powerful.
Okay, here's a question that's been bugging me. How do investigators deal with the sheer volume of data in these cases?
That's a great question. I mean, we're talking terabytes of information sometimes.
It's overwhelming.
It can be. That's where forensic triage comes in.
Forensic triage.
Yeah, think of it like an emergency room doctor.
Okay.
They have to quickly assess patients to prioritize treatment.
Right.
In digital forensics, it's about quickly sifting through all that data.
To find the most important stuff.
Exactly. Prioritize what to collect and analyze first.
So they're looking for the most critical information first.
Exactly. And then there are data reduction techniques.
Data reduction.
Yeah, these help narrow down that mountain of data even further.
How so?
By filtering out irrelevant information, focusing on specific keywords, data types.
So it's all about working smarter, not harder.
Exactly. And we can't forget about automation.
Oh yeah, AI is everywhere these days.
It is. And a lot of digital forensics tools are getting smarter. They can automate those tedious tasks.
Which speeds up the whole process.
It does. It frees up investigators to focus on the more complex stuff.
So it's a good thing.
It is. It's helping to make digital forensics more efficient and effective.
Okay, we've talked a lot about the technical side of things.
Yeah, a lot of tools and techniques.
But digital forensics is ultimately about people, right?
Absolutely. It's about using technology to uncover the truth, to seek justice.
What qualities make a good digital forensics investigator?
Besides the technical skills, they need to be incredibly detail-oriented, patient, persistent.
Like a detective.
Exactly. They have to be strong analytical thinkers, great problem solvers.
I can imagine.
But it's not just about brains, it's about communication too.
So they need to be able to explain all that technical stuff in a way that anyone can understand.
Exactly, whether it's in a report or in a courtroom.
Makes sense.
And of course, there's the ethical aspect.
Right. That's hugely important.
It is. Digital forensics investigators, they deal with sensitive information. They're often involved in legal proceedings, so they have to operate with the highest ethical standards.
Integrity, objectivity, confidentiality.
Oh, essential.
It sounds like it takes a special kind of person to excel in digital forensics.
It does. It's a challenging but incredibly rewarding field for those who have a passion for technology, for problem solving, and for justice.
Well said. Now, one area that's really exploding right now is the Internet of Things, or IoT.
Ah, the IoT. Everything's connected these days.
It is. What makes IoT forensics so challenging?
Well, the IoT, with all its smart homes, wearables, connected cars, it's basically an explosion of devices.
And a lot of them are not designed with security in mind.
That's right. They're designed for convenience, not security.
Which makes them easy targets for attackers.
It does. And it can make it harder for investigators to gather and preserve evidence.
So it's like a whole new frontier in digital forensics.
It is a wild west of connected devices.
Okay, let's step back for a moment.
All right.
Think about the bigger picture. What are some of the ethical and legal implications of digital forensics?
That's a crucial question. We're talking about potentially impacting people's privacy, their civil liberties.
Even national security.
Exactly. So, conducting these investigations ethically and legally is paramount.
What are some specific ethical considerations?
Well, first and foremost, respecting people's privacy, handling sensitive information with care.
Makes sense.
Investigators need to be objective, impartial, avoid any bias.
That's a big responsibility.
It is.
And what about the legal side? What are some of the key issues there?
Well, one big one is the admissibility of evidence in court.
Right. It has to be collected and handled properly.
Exactly, according to very specific legal standards.
And then there's the use of hacking tools.
Ah, yes, that's a tricky one.
Because while some tools are valuable for investigations,
Right.
using them can raise some legal and ethical concerns.
Absolutely. It's a delicate balancing act.
Okay, let's talk about the future.
The future of digital forensics, that's exciting.
It is. Where do you see the field heading?
Well, with technology advancing so rapidly and the amount of data exploding,
It's a lot to keep up with.
it is, but it also makes it a very exciting time to be in this field.
What are some of the trends you're seeing?
One of the biggest is the rise of artificial intelligence.
AI. Everyone's talking about it.
For good reason. AI and machine learning, they have the potential to revolutionize digital forensics.
How so?
Well, they can automate tasks, analyze huge amounts of data, even uncover patterns that humans might miss.
So AI will be the digital detective of the future.
Not quite.
Oh,
While AI and ML can be incredibly powerful tools, they're not a replacement for human expertise.
okay.
Investigators will still need to understand the nuances of digital evidence, interpret the results, and make those critical decisions.
So it's more like a partnership.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And humans working together.
I like that. What about blockchain? Blockchain forensics is another trend I've been hearing about.
Ah, yes, blockchain. It's known for its use in cryptocurrencies.
Right, Bitcoin and all that.
Exactly. But blockchain's applications are expanding rapidly.
So we need ways to investigate blockchain-related crimes.
We do, and that's where blockchain forensics comes in.
What makes blockchain forensics different?
Well, blockchain transactions are recorded in a decentralized and immutable ledger.
Immutable, meaning it can't be changed.
Exactly. Which makes tampering with evidence very difficult.
That's a good thing.
It is. But it also presents new challenges.
How so?
Well, investigators need to understand how blockchain works.
It's a complex technology.
It is, and they need specialized tools to track and analyze those transactions.
So blockchain is adding yet another layer of complexity to the digital forensics world.
It is. But it's also incredibly exciting, opening up new frontiers in investigations.
So the future of digital forensics is bright.
It is, but it's also challenging.
I bet.
Investigators will need to adapt to new technologies, constantly learn new skills.
It's a fast-moving field.
It is. But with the right tools, training, and a passion for the truth, digital forensics professionals will play a crucial role in uncovering the truth and ensuring justice.
Well said. Now, we've talked a lot about the technical side of digital forensics.
A lot of tools, techniques, technologies.
We have. But what about the human side? What kind of psychological challenges do investigators face?
That's an important aspect that often gets overlooked.
It's true.
You see, digital forensics investigators often deal with some pretty disturbing content.
I can imagine.
Evidence of crimes, child exploitation, terrorism.
That must take a toll.
It does. It can take a toll on their mental and emotional well-being.
So it's important that they have the support they need.
It's crucial. Counseling, peer support groups, stress management techniques.
To help them cope.
Exactly.
It's a good reminder that behind all the technology, there are real people doing this difficult but vital work.
Absolutely. We need to acknowledge their dedication and the challenges they face.
What advice would you give to someone who's interested in a career in digital forensics?
If you have a passion for technology, for problem solving, and for justice, digital forensics can be an incredibly fulfilling career.
It sounds like it.
It is. I would say build a strong foundation in computer science and cybersecurity.
Makes sense.
Stay up to date on the latest trends and seek out hands-on experience.
Through internships, maybe?
Exactly. Internships, entry-level positions, those are great ways to get started.
Where can someone find those opportunities?
There are tons of resources online, courses, certifications, communities of practice.
Great.
And there are internships and entry-level positions at law enforcement agencies, private companies, consulting firms.
So there's a path for anyone who's motivated and willing to put in the work.
Absolutely. Digital forensics is a field that's constantly evolving. There's always something new to learn.
Sounds exciting.
It is. Embrace the challenge, never stop learning, and you'll have a rewarding career ahead of you.
Right, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have, from the basics to the challenges of the cloud, mobile devices, the IoT.
It's a lot to take in.
It is.
Yeah.
But it's all fascinating stuff.
Before we wrap up,
Okay.
I want to go back to the Rama Informatica Forense manual.
The Spanish one.
Yeah. It talked about the 6 phases of a digital forensics investigation.
Ah, the roadmap for success.
Can we go over those?
Absolutely. These phases provide a structured framework for investigations, ensure that evidence is handled correctly, and that the investigation is thorough.
Okay, so we've got identification, preservation, collection, examination, analysis, and presentation.
Those are the 6.
What happens during identification?
So identification is all about scoping out the investigation.
Figuring out what happened.
Exactly. What devices are involved? What are the goals?
So it's like laying the foundation.
Exactly.
And then preservation, that's all about protecting the evidence.
Exactly. Digital evidence is fragile. It can be easily altered, deleted.
So it's like securing a crime scene.
It is, but in the digital world,
So isolating devices, making copies of data.
precisely, you want to make sure that the evidence is in the same state as when the incident occurred.
Pristine condition.
Exactly.
Okay, and then collection.
Collection is where we actually gather the evidence.
Using those specialized tools.
Right, to create those forensically sound copies of data.
And maintaining that chain of custody.
Crucial. Every step needs to be documented, verifiable.
To make sure the evidence holds up in court.
Exactly.
Okay, once the evidence is collected, what's next?
Examination. This phase involves using various tools and techniques to analyze the data.
So this is where the real detective work begins.
It is. They're searching for anything relevant to the investigation.
Like looking for clues.
Exactly. They might use keyword searches, file carving techniques, timeline analysis.
All sorts of methods to uncover hidden data.
Exactly.
And then analysis.
Analysis goes a step further.
How so?
It's about interpreting the findings from the examination, piecing together the digital puzzle.
Drawing conclusions about what happened.
Exactly. Who is involved, how they did it.
So making sense of the data.
Precisely. And turning it into actionable intelligence.
And finally, we have presentation.
Presentation is all about communication.
So explaining the findings.
Exactly. Whether it's through written reports, presentations, or courtroom testimony.
So investigators need to be good communicators.
They do. They need to be able to explain complex technical information in a way that anyone can understand.
And tell a compelling story.
Exactly. Presentation is where investigators share their expertise and help others understand the significance of the digital evidence.
Wow. This deep dive has given me a whole new appreciation for the world of digital forensics.
It's a fascinating field, isn't it?
It is. Far more complex than I ever imagined.
And as technology keeps evolving, it's only going to get more interesting.
Well, thank you for taking us on this journey. It's been enlightening. And thank you, dear listener, for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you've gained a better understanding of what digital forensics is all about, the steps involved, and the challenges and rewards of this ever-evolving field. Now, as we wrap up, here's a thought for you. As our lives become increasingly intertwined with technology, think about the digital trails we're leaving behind. Our online activities, our communications, our financial transactions, our location data, all of this could potentially be used as evidence in a digital forensics investigation. So be mindful of your digital footprint, protect your privacy, and stay safe out there in the digital world. So we've explored a lot of ground, haven't we? The tools, the techniques, the challenges, even the human side of digital forensics.
It's a vast field, that's for sure.
It is. But I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier.
Okay, what's that?
The Rama Informatica Forense manual, remember? The one from Spain.
Ah, yes, I remember. It was a good one.
It was. It emphasized the importance of process.
Oh, absolutely crucial.
Yeah. They laid out these 6 phases of a digital forensics investigation.
Right. Those phases are like the backbone of any good investigation.
Exactly. So, to recap, we have identification, preservation, collection, examination, analysis, and finally, presentation.
A roadmap for success in digital forensics.
I like that. So, walk me through it. Remind me what happens in each phase.
Okay, so let's start with identification. This is where investigators figure out what they're dealing with.
The scope of the investigation.
Exactly. What happened? What devices are involved? What data are we looking at? What are the goals?
So it's like the initial assessment.
It is. Laying the groundwork, forming those first hypotheses.
And then comes preservation.
Ah, preservation, perhaps the most crucial phase of all.
Why is that?
Because digital evidence is so fragile, you know?
Right, it can be easily changed or deleted.
Exactly. So preservation is all about protecting that evidence, making sure it stays in its original state.
Like putting it in a protective bubble.
Yeah, exactly. Securing those devices, isolating them from networks, creating those forensically sound copies of the data.
So, no contamination, no tampering.
Exactly. That's the goal.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So once the scene is secure, the evidence is protected, then we move on to collection.
Right. Collection is where investigators actually gather the evidence, using specialized tools and techniques.
To create those forensically sound copies.
Precisely. It's not just about copying files, it's about doing it the right way, maintaining that chain of custody.
So every step is documented, verifiable.
It has to be, to make sure the evidence will hold up in court.
Okay, the evidence has been collected. What happens next?
Then comes examination. This is where things get interesting.
I bet.
Investigators use a variety of tools and techniques to analyze the data, searching for anything that might be relevant to the investigation.
So looking for clues, patterns, hidden connections.
Exactly. They might use keyword searches, file carving techniques, timeline analysis.
Sounds like a lot of work.
It can be, but it's also like solving a puzzle, you know?
Yeah, I can see that.
And then after examination, we have analysis.
Analysis, okay. How's that different from examination?
Well, analysis goes a step further.
Right.
It's about taking all those findings from the examination phase and making sense of them.
So interpreting the data, connecting the dots?
Exactly. Drawing conclusions about what happened, who was involved, how they did it.
So it's about turning that raw data into a story.
It is a story that explains what happened.
And this is where those aha moments happen.
Absolutely. Analysis is where investigators really start to understand the big picture.
And the final key is presentation.
Right. Presentation is all about communicating those findings, whether it's through written reports, presentations, or courtroom testimony.
So it's not just about what they found, it's about how they explain it.
Exactly. They need to be able to communicate complex technical information in a way that's clear, concise, and persuasive.
So a good digital forensics investigator needs to be a good storyteller.
Absolutely. They need to be able to bring that digital evidence to life, help others understand its significance.
Wow, this has been an amazing journey. I feel like I've learned so much about the world of digital forensics.
It's a fascinating field, isn't it?
It is, full of challenges and rewards.
And constantly evolving, which keeps things interesting.
Well, thank you for sharing your expertise with us today. It's been a real eye-opener.
My pleasure. I'm glad you found it insightful.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into digital forensics. We hope you've enjoyed it and learned something new. Remember, in our increasingly digital world, we're all leaving behind digital footprints. So be mindful of your online activity, protect your privacy, and stay safe out there.